From a single hidden blade in the Holy Land to Viking longships burning English monasteries, the Assassin's Creed franchise spent over a decade quietly inflating its body counts from surgical precision into full-scale historical warfare. We're breaking down all 12 major protagonists, their canonical kills, their real gameplay carnage, and the massive gap between the two. Let's start where it all began, with 10 targets and a counterkill problem, Altair ibn la Ahad. Here's the thing about the original Assassin. Altair has exactly 10 canonical kills across the entire Third Crusade, 9 targets including Robert de Sablé, and then Al-Mualim himself. That's it, 10 people. The poster boy for an entire franchise about killing people has a confirmed body count you can count on your fingers. But let's be honest with ourselves for a second. Nobody played Assassin's Creed 1 and only killed 10 people. The average main story playthrough racks up somewhere between 150 and 300 anonymous guards, and completionists, low thousands. The counter-kill system turned every single player into a frontline swordsman who'd wipe entire garrisons without blinking. The guy whose whole philosophy is stay hidden, strike once, disappear became a medieval blender the moment 3 guards spotted him on a rooftop. And then there's Masyaf. The final assault forces Altair to cut through his own brainwashed assassin brothers to reach Al-Mualim, former allies, friends, people he trained with. That single sequence is the deadliest spike in his personal count, and nobody talks about it. So this is our baseline. 10 surgical kills in canon, hundreds of counter-killed guards in practice, the franchise's founding tension between what an assassin is supposed to be and what the gameplay turns them into. Every single entry after this inherits that contradiction. But Altair's numbers look almost quaint compared to what comes next. Ezio Auditore da Firenze. No other protagonist in this franchise gets 3 full games to hone their craft, 4 decades of active fieldwork. Altair had his redemption arc and retired to philosophy. Ezio just kept killing people across Italy and Constantinople like it was a full-time job, which, to be fair, it was. Between Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, and Revelations, Ezio racks up somewhere between 20 and 30 named Templar kills, the Pazzi conspirators, the Barbarigo family, Rodrigo Borgia's entire inner circle, Cesare's lieutenants, the Byzantine remnants in Constantinople. His canonical hit list more than doubles Altair's. Here's where it gets complicated. Brotherhood doesn't just make Ezio a killer, it makes him a military commander. He recruits assassins, sends them on missions across Europe, and can call down an arrow volley that wipes an entire patrol off the street. Hey, could you guys murder those 12 soldiers for me? Thanks. The indirect kill count under his command is staggering, but the real body count inflator is the environment itself. The Borgia occupation of Rome means guards on every corner, in every restricted zone, on every rooftop. A completionist run across all 3 games puts Ezio's gameplay body count comfortably in the low thousands. Dual hidden blades, bracer-mounted pistol, poison darts. He can ghost through a mission or chain kill 6 guards in a cinematic execution streak. Most players did both regularly, but if you think Ezio's decades of Italian and Ottoman bloodshed sound excessive, wait until you meet the guy who fought an entire revolution. Connor Kenway. Connor Kenway is the first Assassin's Creed protagonist who's not just involved in a war, he's an actual soldier, and that changes everything about how we count his bodies. On paper, his named Templar kills look familiar. Around 9 to 12 high-profile targets, including John Pitcairn at Bunker Hill, Thomas Hickey, Charles Lee, and his own father, Haytham Kenway. That last one deserves a moment. He kills his own dad. Not by accident, not manipulation, he puts the blade in himself. Family dinners must have been awkward, but here's where Connor's numbers get weird. The American Revolution isn't a shadow war. It's musket volleys, bayonet charges, and cannon fire. Battles like Bunker Hill and Monmouth don't let you sneak by. You're hacking through redcoats with a tomahawk, chain killing 3, 4, 5 soldiers in a single attack. A typical run puts Connor's body count somewhere in the hundreds or even over 1,000 just on foot. His combat system is built for group slaughter in a way Altair's never was. Then there's the Aquila. Every ship Connor sinks has a full crew, dozens of sailors gone. Finish all naval missions and you've wiped out hundreds more enemies, all off-screen underwater in burning hulls off Martha's Vineyard. Official kill counts match Altair's. But because of war, Connor's actual body count is on a whole different level. Altair was a scalpel, Connor was a scalpel strapped to a cannon, and yet somehow his grandfather was even worse, Edward Kenway. Edward Kenway isn't even an assassin for most of his game. He's a Welsh privateer chasing gold in the Caribbean who stumbles into the Assassin-Templar War because he killed the wrong guy and stole his robes. And yet somehow, this profit-motivated sailor has a body count that would make actual military commanders uncomfortable. His named Templar kills sit around a dozen. Standard fare. But here's where it gets absurd. Naval combat isn't a side activity in Black Flag, it's the entire game. Every ship you sink has a crew on it. A man-o'-war carries a crew in the hundreds. Players destroy these routinely for upgrade materials. A single completionist run involves sinking well over 100 vessels. Even if you assume half the crew survives each engagement, which is generous, considering you're firing broadside cannons into a wooden hull, you're looking at thousands of dead sailors attributed to one guy who just wanted to buy a mansion. Then there's the forts. Multiple forts across the map, each requiring you to sink every guard ship, destroy coastal defenses, then storm the ramparts and kill everyone inside. Dual swords, 4 flintlock pistols, and a combat system that rewards charging into fights. Edward doesn't wait. The man was basically a warship commander who occasionally did parkour, and he did all of this before he even believed in the creed, which makes what comes next even more interesting, because his quartermaster eventually got his own ship, his own mission, and a very different reason to kill. Adewale. Here's the thing about Adewale. His list of named targets is tiny, single digits. A handful of slave ship captains, plantation overseers, and French colonial officials. On paper, that makes him one of the least prolific assassins in the franchise, but that number is a lie, because moment to moment, this man might be the most violent protagonist in the entire series. Freedom Cry gives you a compact map, a machete, and a blunderbuss that kills 3 people at once. That last detail is important. Ubisoft looked at the stealth mechanics they'd spent years refining and said, nah, walk up to them. The entire DLC mechanically rejects sneaking. You are supposed to be loud, you are supposed to be seen. Every plantation raid requires cutting through armed guards to free enslaved people. Every slave convoy means killing the escort. Every ship you board means clearing the deck. These aren't optional encounters. They are the game. Liberation is the core loop, and liberation requires a body count. What separates Adewale from everyone else isn't the number of people he kills. It's that the game never once asks you to feel conflicted about it. Connor questions his role. Edward kills for profit. Adewale kills a plantation overseer, and 20 people walk free. Every death is framed as emancipation. No ambiguity, no hand-wringing. Just a man with a blunderbuss pointed at the machinery of slavery. His kill density per hour probably exceeds most mainline protagonists, and yet nobody talks about him when ranking the deadliest assassins, which is a shame because if you think one man liberating an island is brutal, wait until you meet the assassin who switched sides and started hunting his own brotherhood, Shay Patrick Cormac. Let's get the elephant out of the room immediately. If you count the Lisbon earthquake, Shay Cormac is responsible for more deaths than every other protagonist on this list combined, and it's not even close. The assassins sent Shay to retrieve a precursor artifact beneath Lisbon in 1755. He disturbed it. The entire city collapsed. Tens of thousands died in the earthquake, the fires, and the tsunami that followed. Shay didn't mean to do it, but his hands were on the thing that caused it. That's a body count that makes naval warfare look like a bar fight. Now, setting Lisbon aside, his personal kill list is modest. High single digits, maybe low double digits of named targets. But every single one is an assassin, not some corrupt governor. These are mentors, brotherhood leaders, people who hold entire networks together. Each death collapses an entire regional operation. His air rifle turns him into something the franchise hadn't seen before, a predator hunting other predators. Assassins who are themselves stalking targets suddenly find Shay behind them. The hunter becomes hunted dynamic flipped completely on its head, but the real legacy isn't the numbers, it's the damage. Shay's campaign against the colonial brotherhood nearly wipes them off the map. That broken, barely functioning organization Connor inherits decades later, that's Shay's handiwork. He didn't just kill assassins, he killed the assassin brotherhood itself. But if you think turning on your own order is dark, wait until you meet a man whose greatest enemy was grief itself. Arno Dorian is the Schrodinger's cat of Assassin's Creed protagonists. He's simultaneously the most peaceful and one of the most violent assassins in the franchise, and which version you get depends entirely on whether you're good at video games. Here's the thing. Unity's black box assassination design is built around the fantasy of the perfect kill. Massive multi-entry environments, disguises, hidden routes, environmental opportunities, also you can waltz in, put a blade in one specific Templar's neck, and ghost out like you were never there. Arno's canonical target list is fewer than a dozen elite assassinations, all members of Germain's inner circle. On paper, he's one of the cleanest operators in Brotherhood history, but revolutionary Paris had other plans. Unity City is the densest urban environment the series had built to that point. Massive crowds, heavily armed guards from multiple factions stacked on top of each other, restricted zones the size of entire city blocks. The game hands you a scalpel and drops you into a blender. One mistimed blend, and suddenly you're fencing 6 extremists in an alleyway, while 3 more climb down from the rooftops. A skilled player can finish Unity with a body count in the low dozens. Most players, high hundreds. Easy. The AI doesn't care about your stealth build. And surrounding all of this is a city already drowning in death. Guillotines dropping in public squares, mobs dragging people through streets. Arno navigates this apocalypse, but rarely causes it. He's a surgeon working inside a slaughterhouse. But if you think the gap between intention and body count is interesting with Arno, wait until you meet someone who never even pretended to care about stealth. Jacob Fry. Jacob Fry is the moment the series stops pretending. Every assassin before him operated in the shadows, pulling strings, whispering into the ear of history. Jacob walks into Victorian London, looks at the entire Templar power structure, and says, I'm going to build a gang and punch my way through all of it, which is, not exactly what the Creed had in mind. Here's the thing about Jacob's kill count. His name targets roughly 8 to 10 Templar lieutenants, plus Crawford Starrick himself, each controlling a borough of London's industrial machine, aren't even the interesting part. The interesting part is everything in between. Because to reach those targets, Jacob doesn't sneak through a window and disappear. He liberates entire districts through gang wars, pitched battles, dozens of rooks crashing into dozens of blighters, while Jacob wades through the middle with brass knuckles and a cane sword, chain-killing his way from one end of the street to the other. The combat system is built for extended brawls, knife strikes, knuckle combos, brutal finishers that flow from one enemy to the next like he's conducting an orchestra of broken jaws. Then you factor in the carriage chases, where he's throwing guys off, moving vehicles, the train hijackings where entire cars get cleared out, the rooftop pursuits that end with someone falling 6 stories onto cobblestone. He's not an assassin operating within a war, he is the war. The first protagonist, whose primary mode of operation is overt populist violence rather than shadow conspiracy, a gang general with a hidden blade collecting dust in his pocket. But if you think Jacob's approach to London was messy, wait until you see how his sister handled the exact same city with an entirely different philosophy. Evie Fry, same city, same war, same targets. And yet Evie Fry might have the lowest body count of any protagonist in the entire franchise, which is wild because she's standing right next to Jacob while he's punching his way through half of London. Here's the thing about Evie. She shares most of her major canonical kills with Jacob. Crawford Starrick goes down with both twins present. The borough lieutenants fall through their combined efforts. But Evie has one unique kill that defines her entire philosophy, Lucy Thorne. A Templar obsessed with securing a piece of Eden, eliminated not through some chaotic gang brawl, but through careful infiltration and a single, precise strike. She kills to protect something, not to conquer territory. But here's where it gets interesting. Her entire skill tree is basically the game telling you please stop killing people. Invisibility enhancements, chameleon blending, knife throwing that lets you pick off one guard instead of fighting 12. A disciplined player can complete most of her missions killing only the primary target. One person walks in, one person dies, one person walks out. The community figured this out immediately. No Detection Challenge runs overwhelmingly use Evie as the default character, because she's mechanically built for surgical precision in a game that otherwise hands you brass knuckles and says go nuts. Narratively, she's framed as the true assassin sibling, the one who actually reads the Creed instead of using it as a coaster, and if we take the game's own characterization seriously, Evie probably killed fewer people in her entire London campaign than Jacob kills on a Tuesday. But if Evie represents the last whisper of the stealth-first assassin, then what comes next is the complete opposite. A man who didn't just kill targets. He built an entire brotherhood on the ashes of everyone who wronged him. Bayek of Siwa. Bayek is where the series stops pretending. Every protagonist before him operated within a structure that let you imagine the assassin was surgical, precise, minimal. Bayek doesn't get that luxury. Here's the thing. His canonical target list alone is larger than Altair's, Ezio's, and Connor's combined. Over 20 named Order of the Ancients members fall to his blade in the main story, and once you factor in side quest oppressors and bandit leaders, that number pushes toward 30. 30 personally significant kills before we even talk about the nameless thousands. And those nameless thousands, they're not optional. Origins introduced RPG leveling. You can't waltz into a high-level region and assassinate your target like it's 2007. You need experience. You need gear. You need to clear camps and fight through entire military installations just to keep pace. The The game structurally demands that Bayek kill constantly, then the loot system whispers in your ear. You scouted the fort with Senu, identified the captain, planned your stealth approach. Beautiful, very assassin. But there are 4 more chests in there. A legendary weapon on the commander. So you don't leave, you clear the whole thing. Every guard, every patrol, every unlucky soldier who wandered back from his lunch break, and the backdrop is the Egyptian civil war. Cleopatra versus Ptolemy XIII. Caesar's legions making everything exponentially more violent. Military encampments on every riverbank. Roman fortifications on every hill. For thorough players, his body count reaches comfortably into the thousands. Bayek is the tipping point where the franchise structurally commits to mass combat as the primary means of progression. But if Bayek is the tipping point, the next entry doesn't just cross the line. It erases it entirely, hands the player a spear, and says, go fight an entire war. Cassandra. Cassandra is where the franchise stops pretending. Every protagonist before her exists within some kind of boundary. Altair has his 10 targets. Ezio has his decades of conspiracy. But Cassandra? Cassandra has infinity. The Cult of Cosmos alone gives her the longest canonical elite kill list in the entire franchise. Over 40 named members, organized into thematic branches, each one a unique individual with a face, a backstory, and a very specific reason to die. That's not a hit list, that's a phone book. Altair got 10 names and a pat on the back. Cassandra gets a conspiracy so large, it needs its own organizational chart. But the cultists aren't even the main source of her body count. Conquest battles are full-scale military clashes between Spartan and Athenian forces, and Cassandra can show up to either side whenever she feels like it. Each one involves her personally cutting down dozens of soldiers, and they're repeatable. They're designed to be farmed. The Peloponnesian War never ends mechanically. It just keeps generating bodies. Then there's the mercenary system, a persistent ladder of named adversaries constantly refreshing as she climbs the ranks. Every single one is a named individual who existed specifically for her to destroy. Add naval combat on top, sinking ships endlessly across the Aegean, each carrying a crew that simply ceases to exist. The fundamental difference between Cassandra and everyone before her is structural. Previous protagonists have a kill count. Cassandra has a kill rate. There is no ceiling. The war continues. The mercenaries respawn. The ships keep sailing. Her body count isn't a number, it's a function that keeps climbing as long as you keep playing. But if you think an endless Greek war produces bodies, wait until you meet a Viking who turned raiding into a lifestyle. Eivor Varin's daughter. Eivor is a Viking raider whose job description literally includes burning monasteries. She carries the hidden blade, sure, but let's be honest, it's more of an accessory at this point, like wearing a stethoscope to a demolition site. Her canonical target list is massive, several dozen Order of the Ancients members spread across England, plus lost Drengar duels, plus every regional arc antagonist she puts in the ground along the way. But here's the thing, that's just the political kills. River raids and monastery raids are a core repeatable mechanic. You need those resources to upgrade your settlement. Every single raid involves Eivor and her crew fighting through waves of Anglo-Saxon defenders. Siege battles form the climax of multiple arcs, with Eivor breaking gates, cutting through soldiers like she's harvesting wheat. This isn't assassination, this is warfare with an assassin's hood draped over it, and her combat style removes any remaining ambiguity. Dual-wielding axes, hammers, executing finishing moves so brutal they'd make Ezio flinch. The hidden blade is there, technically functional, quietly collecting dust, while Eivor buries a Dane axe in someone's collarbone, and that's the punchline to this entire video. Altair had 11 surgical kills in the Holy Land. Eivor has thousands of raid casualties across England. That's not a difference in degree. That's a complete transformation of what the word assassin means in this franchise. From a single hidden blade in a crowd to a long ship full of warriors crashing into a riverbank. 15 years of evolution, and we ended up here. Which is, not ideal for the monasteries. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.